What's up, folks? This is Tony Burr and Aaron Dotson, and we are coming at you this week with another episode of Christianity Now. Today, we're talking about love bombing and flattery. This is a topic that, quite frankly, it's overlooked, and I know it gets overlooked because of the feedback that I get every time I cover this, and this time, Aaron and I are covering it together, but I always get good feedback, and they say, hey, listen, I've never heard a lesson about this. You know, we hear flattery talked about and stuff like that, but rarely people say that rarely they get a lesson about the dangers of flattery, and I'm including love bombing because of the onset of YouTube and social media influencers. People are much more educated, I guess, when it comes to mental health jargon and esoteric language. Flattery is what it's always been called, but flattery in a specific setting for a specific purpose, that's love bombing, and love bombing carries with it a nefarious intent.
Yeah.
But it's all flattery.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I'm talking about genuine expressions of love and kindness.
No, we're not talking about genuine affections of love and kindness. And I guess here's something that I say this every time I talk about it. Whenever I went to the Memphis School of Preaching, I had no idea what the Memphis School of Preaching was. I had never been around these men who were preaching, and they were very good orators and this, that, and the other. And I came across as a flatterer, and I did not realize it. Again, it's just, I didn't know. But I remember whenever it dawned on me what I was doing, and I felt really, really bad.
Yeah.
Because, you know, like these men, they do what they do. They don't want to draw much attention to it. They just want it to be another day at the office.
Yeah.
And I remember whenever I was training horses, and my job, and like people call me the horse whisperer, my job was to ride the wild horses, was to deal with horses that were at the end of their proverbial rope. In other words, when they got to me, sometimes that was the last stop until they were on the way to the glue factory. Like I've trained horses and broke horses that have harmed people in a permanent way before, like bad horses. And it always made me uncomfortable and, quite frankly, a little, I don't know what the word is, jaded, or we'll just say a little salty. That's something that the kids use today. It made me a little salty and a little feeling some kind of way whenever folks would draw so much attention to it. Like, oh, Tony, you're just like, if you're telling me this, I don't know, are you trying to convince me that you think that, or it just always, it just didn't sit well with me.
Yeah.
And people tell, one thing that I really hated, oh, you just have a natural God-given talent. And it made me want to slap them, because I was like, do you understand the bruises and the aches and the pains that I had to endure to learn how to do this?
That's why like education on this subject is important, because I think there's good people that do it ignorantly, but whether they're doing it ignorantly or not, it still harms people. It still hurts.
Yes.
It's not good.
I'm so glad that you said that, because in order to discern whether or not someone is love bombing, you have to get into the realm of intentions.
Yeah.
However, when we just talk about flattery, flattery is just flattery. It doesn't matter the intentions.
Yeah.
So love bombing is nefarious. Flattery doesn't always have to be nefarious, as Aaron pointed out. And I'll give you an example. Another about Memphis School of Preaching. The model for Memphis School of Preaching is 4 years of Bible in 2 years. You cannot work. Like, you can't, as a man, you cannot go and you can't say, well, I'll support my family while I'm there by working another job. First off, that's against the rules. And two, the reason it's against the rules is because you won't be able to do it. Mm-hmm. So before you go to the Memphis School of Preaching, you send out letters, you ask for support from congregations, you go visit congregations, and typically the congregation has you preach for them. And then there's always, it's usually some little old lady that's 172 years old, and she tells you that you don't need to go to preaching school because she hasn't heard preaching like that since she sat at the feet of Guy N. Woods.
Yep. Yep.
Well, some of my contemporaries, Aaron, believed them.
Yeah.
But that's flattery.
Yep.
That's work. First off, that woman is not a homiletician. She wouldn't know a good sermon if it slapped her in the face.
Yeah.
And she's actually, regardless of her intentions, she's doing you a disservice by, what would we say if we were being a little crude? If she's doing you a disservice by blowing smoke up your bum.
Yeah. I know of a real life illustration of this for me was that I was with a good friend, a gospel preacher, and he's a good orator, in my opinion. And he and I were together one time on one occasion where before he spoke, the person that was at the mic, introducing, made comments along the line that this individual, that this friend of mine, had such a good natural raw talent and so forth. And of course, when they said it from the pulpit, I didn't care for it, but what was I going to do? I wasn't going to disrupt everything. You just keep on going. He got up and preached. It was over. We went back together to the place where we were staying, and he said, I got something I want to talk about. It's really bothering me. And I was like, what? Because I just let it go, Yeah. And he said, it really bothers me how that person said those things about me. And I started getting what he was saying, and he was like, people don't know how much hard work I've put into what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And it hurts me for people to say, he just has it just comes so easy to him. I think that was one of the comments that was made. Comes so easy to him and natural. I guess they meant it good. They meant it like, he's such a good speaker, but still, what does that do to somebody? It's not healthy.
I don't think people, quite frankly, they're just not self-aware. And there's a comment. First off, good morning, everybody. Good to see everybody. Robert Leedy, Scott Beck, Brandon Wild, good to see you. Danny Mentor, good to see you. Terry Crooks. That's a good segue, Aaron, into, and incidentally, I don't know that you need to try to change anything, but you do sound muffled.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well,
I do not know what's going on. Yeah. I wouldn't mess with it because I think it sounds good enough. Okay. Let us know in the chat, folks, if it sounds good enough, or do we need to address it? But if I'm saying it sounds good enough, and I'm usually the one that's very, very neurotic, I don't want to. In other words, I don't want to mess with it and take a chance on making it worse. All right.
Yeah. Okay.
So here's a good example of why this topic needs to be taught. So it's bad to tell my Sunday school teacher thanks. And tell her she has done a good job for me. Well, that's the thing. I don't know. It's not bad, but you made a jump. We're talking about flattery and love bombing, and you made a jump from that to an actual expression of appreciation. Romans chapter 13, in speaking of how we deal with government officials, and taxes, quite frankly, there's a general principle that can be pulled from that. We give honor to whom honor is due. Mm-hmm. So like for instance, there's a guy that here in the Riverview Church of Christ, Ayokunle, he's from the continent of Africa, specifically the country of Nigeria. He preaches once a month. There's just several levels on why he needs to do that. One, he's good at it. Two, it gives me a break. Three, it gives the people a break from me.
Mm-hmm. Good for the congregation.
Yes, and it's good for him.
Yep.
I will dote on him whenever he does something exceptional. And he has preached some really good sermons, and he said some really exceptional things. And I always recognize it, and I always call it out publicly. But I don't pour it on. There's whenever I was very young, when I say very young, it's 18, 19 years old. I think it was 18. I was in sales, and an older man pulled me off to the side and said, Tony, do you mind if I give you some advice? You didn't ask for it, but I want to give you this advice. I said, sure. He said, okay. Do you like hot dogs? Man, I love hot dogs, like a grilled hot dog. As far as I'm concerned, it is very difficult to beat a good grilled hot dog with any food out there. And he said, well, think about, you got this good grilled hot dog. It's got the right amount of char. You got the bun just right. And you've got mustard on it. And it's, what can you think would be better? Like, I'm not sure. He said, have you ever just had a hot dog like that, but had way too much mustard? I said, yes, sir. He said, well, son, whenever you're in sales and you're talking to people and you're helping them with what they're getting, in sales or in life, just remember it's possible to spread the mustard a little too thick.
Yeah.
So we're talking about spreading the mustard too thick.
Right. Like, you just look up flattery and it says excessive and insincere praise.
Yep.
Given especially to further one's interest. I mean, that's...
Yes. And that interest could be, I see this person and I want to develop a relationship with them.
Right.
It might not be nefarious.
The motive may not be sinful, may not be nefarious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I would think preachers would rather.
Yeah, but even then, it may not be healthy. Like, I want to develop a friendship with Tony. So I'm going to keep telling him, like, let's say I honestly thought you were the best orator of the gospel I'd ever heard. Do I need to keep telling you that? Like,
no, because then it gets awkward.
Exactly. Like, what in the world? It's not healthy either for you to hear that.
Yeah, I like what this Scott's got. I like what... I'm the best orator that's ever been. Aaron just said it. All right.
But I can't get my English right.
Yeah. Well, I only really perform, and the Holy Ghost had got me. All right.
No, you had to go there, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I had to. All right. I would think preachers would rather hear that they learned something from the sermon. Yes.
Amen.
If you look, let me tell you something. If you really want to say sick 'em to a dog, come up to me after the gospel sermon and say, you know what? You've wrinkled my brain. I've never considered that.
Yeah.
And here's the catch, Aaron. I don't care if you agree with me or not.
Yep.
You can say, I don't agree with your position.
Yep.
But I've never heard it articulated like that, and I have some stuff to chew on.
Yep. I very recently had a conversation with someone that I knew we disagreed on this particular issue, and they came back and mentioned something that I said that they were thinking about differently, or said, I could see where you believe that because of that verse and that comment you made about that verse, that kind of thing. It was like they were listening to what I was saying, even though we were disagreeing. That matters. That's what it's all about. Like, listen, learn, respect boundaries, etc. Don't indict somebody's character because of what they believe.
Oh yeah, John Exum. It reminds me of that child that said, "I baptize you in the name of the Father and of the Son, and in the hole you go." All right. Yeah, I love you, but. Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, that the word "but" after a compliment. The word "but" that's Aaron, you have a really good presence and a really good aura, but now everything that I say after the word "but" negates what I said before the word "but."
Yep. But just tears it all down.
Yeah, I love you, but I hate you.
I love you, but you're annoying.
Good morning, Brian Allen. I hope that's a very sad phrase that I said that you came in on. I love you, but I hate you. I put that in its context. That was not being said. That was just being said for an example. Danny Mentor says, you've wrinkled my brain on at least one occasion so far, and I appreciate your stand with me. Sorry, I call it locking my glasses into four-wheel drive. I got to cock it up. I'm not looking down my nose at you. I'm looking through the thick part of my glasses. Good morning, Jason Goldtrap. Good morning to you. So anyway, yeah, so that's why this really needs taught about, is because we don't look at it enough. Before we get into, and I know we've been going 15 minutes, but it's the nature of the show. I put some links in the show notes. I want to turn everybody's attention to the one from Rumble. Y'all, I've been sleeping on Rumble, and I didn't know it. I'm going to start uploading videos on Rumble. First off, Rumble, you're already monetized. You don't have to jump through any hoops. Now, that doesn't mean that we're going to start earning money through Rumble, because it's still a CPM, cost per million. Anyway, it's not cost per million. Anyway, it's not, you don't start out making money. Okay. You got to grow your channel and everything like that. But I would love for everybody to go to Rumble, to Christianity Now Streams, and subscribe or follow or whatever that is. I know we ask you to do stuff like this all the time. I understand if you can't, that's fine. But I just wanted to let you know, because some people are averse to YouTube. They do not like YouTube. If you do not like YouTube, follow us on Rumble, and we'll put videos on Rumble. That's all I'm saying.
Is it cost per mile?
No, not for views. It's, I don't know why I'm even, look here. Watch this.
I tried to look it up, but
what does CPM mean in?
I didn't Google the right words. You got to search it just right.
No, it is. It's CPM is a cost per 1,000 impressions. So, CPM is a metric that represents how much money advertisers are spending to show ads on YouTube. So I even said the wrong one. So, we don't deal with CPM. Like if I were purchasing ads, I would purchase cost per
CPM.
Cost per. I would concern myself with that. But anyway, just check out Rumble, and then. The article, I wrote this article September 9th of 2023, The Four Horsemen of Disunity, unpacking false binaries, pearl clutching, straw manning, and virtue signaling. Those four horsemen are the harbingers of the apocalypse when it comes to unity. Because what'll happen is people will clutch their pearls like, oh, I can't believe he said that. And they'll deal with their outrage instead of the actual proposition at hand. And then false binaries is whenever you present something in absolute terms and you overlook the diverse nuances that exist in between. And then straw manning is whenever you represent someone's argument inaccurately and tear that down instead of actually tearing down their argument. And then virtue signaling is the expression of moral values, principally to showcase one's own righteousness. Like, well, I would never say something like that. Yeah. I cannot believe that you would be that rude. Well,
the preacher before you was here for 40 years, and he never did that.
And
just stuff like
the preacher that was here before you, everybody loved him. And nobody ever had a bad thing to say about him. Boy, I like that one. Anyway, and then I put God's desire for humanity. And I stole the idea for this article from a dear friend on Facebook. I wrote this. He knows who he is, and you'd know too if you'd simply lean in and listen. And it's God's desire for humanity, salvation over condemnation. So anyway, those are the links that I put in the show, in the comments section. Click on them, avail yourself of them. I think you'll like them.
And that's some stuff that's closely associated, especially the Four Horsemen. That's closely associated with the show today.
It really is. It really is. I'd warn preachers everywhere, if you have a member providing excess flattery, there's most likely an insidious reason behind it. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Be on your guard when people try to play on your pride. I'm gonna pull that up. So yes, that's the thing. And Aaron, I'm sure that you were told this whenever you went through preaching school. Whenever you come into a congregation, the person that jumps up out of the audience first and talks about how awesome you are and about how wonderful you are and about how, and that I'm your guy, that is the person that's quickest to turn on you and tell people how terrible you are and tell, and in other words, they can go the other way.
Yeah, I remember in preacher training that they warned us about that. You know, they told us, our instructors, they said, you know, the ones that initially seem to be your big supporters, well, they could very well end up being the ones that are not. That are just trying to use you or manipulate you.
Well, I'll relate a story. And incidentally, this story has the name Guyan Woods in it. So I've told 2 stories with the name Guyan Woods after this story.
Poor brother, he can't even defend himself. He's gone on to glory.
Well, that's the thing. He don't have to defend himself. This is...
Yeah, you're not attacking.
Well, actually, this one, he would have to defend himself.
Oh, okay.
All right. So
maybe you can help him out.
This was several years ago, and I had a podcast called Life and Godliness.
Oh, yeah.
And it was about like cogitations. I mean, basically, it was just stream of consciousness, and it's things that I think about pertaining to life and godliness. Mm-hmm. And who's the guy in the woods? Jonathan, you're no longer allowed to make jokes in this show for today. You can make jokes again next week when Aaron and I are on, or you can make or you can make jokes tomorrow. But for now, you have to sit there without making jokes, and I want you to think about what you've done. Anyway,
put your nose in the corner if it helps.
That's right. Guy called me up at Bay Church of Christ. So like he had been listening to me. He'd been in a Facebook group that I was in, and he went online and got the phone number to Bay Church of Christ. And he called me. Told me who it was. So that's great. And then he proceeded to tell me that I was, like, to hear him talk, I was Paul the Apostle reincarnate.
Yeah.
He asked me a Bible question. I gave him a succinct answer, kind of quick off the cuff. He told me, he said, I've read so many commentaries. He said, I read a commentary by Guyan Woods where he took almost a whole chapter to explain and answer what you just took 10 seconds to answer. I can't believe it's just, I'm so glad I found you. And I'm so glad I'm able to learn from you. And you're just amazing and awesome. I mean, I'm just, okay. It wasn't 2 weeks later that he found something that I said that he didn't like. And then it was screenshots. He was going to other groups and he was sharing the screenshots like he had hung me on the horns of a dilemma and talking about how terrible of a false teacher I am.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the thing is, I caught it.
Yeah.
I knew it.
Yeah.
That's why I left this comment by Jason Campbell up. I'd warn preachers everywhere that if you have a member or anybody providing excess flattery, there's most likely an insidious reason behind it. Be on your guard when people try to play on your pride.
Yeah. Yeah.
I am more afraid of the preacher who flatters than the one who flatters the preacher. Now both of those are terrible. Both of those are terrible. All right. Aaron, I feel like the comment section has just gotten out of hand. I've lost it.
Yes, go. Hey, and by the way, Jason Campbell, that's somebody I've known for several years, from years past. Hadn't seen him in a while, but he and I try to keep in touch when we have time. But
that's awesome.
He's out on the West Coast preaching.
Oh, that's about like being on the East Coast of Canada preaching. I imagine.
He's out there in greater Los Angeles where he preaches.
Yeah. Well, I wonder, okay.
That's,
correlation is not causation. On my analytics, on the Cogitations podcast, which is where I put the Christianity Now, basically, if we do a recording, it goes up on the Cogitations podcast. I know I should change that. I know we should have okay. Forget all the things I should be doing. This is what is. And when I changed from a regular daily podcast that I just pre-recorded instead of a live stream, I was upwards of 3,000 downloads a month. But because I had grown with that type of content, when I changed to just uploading the archive of the live streams, then my audience diminished, and I for about 3 months I was around 800 downloads a month. Well, it's creeping back up, and we're close to 1,500 downloads a month again, and it'll just continue to creep as the podcast finds its audience. My point is this: Oklahoma, for the last 6 or 8 months, in the state of in the state of Oklahoma, in the country of the United States, has been leading in downloads.
That's interesting. Yeah.
With the exception of this month, California beat Oklahoma in downloads, which makes me think that somebody in California found our content and on their Apple Podcast Dewey just hit download. And I wonder if that's your friend on the West Coast. I wonder, because he's like, I found his content. That's pretty cool. And he listened through Apple Podcast.
Yeah.
And then Apple Podcast just downloaded a bunch. And that's why, because of him, California beat out. So I don't know. Could be.
I know of a couple, 2 different guys that are out there that have listened at least to some of my stuff, and could be a combination. Well,
I always get in my analytics, we always get listeners spread out across the 50 states. And California's always been real good to us as far as the listeners.
That's cool.
But this was a spike. Like it was like a few hundred downloads.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, like you said, somebody clicked it and boom, it did a bunch of episodes at one time.
I really feel like that's happened. And like, I know correlation is not causation, but your buddy from the West Coast chimed in today, and then lo and behold, just a short while ago, we had that big spike.
Could have been. Did you see Scott Beck's "How Does Preacheritis Play Into This"?
I did not see it. I've lost the comment section. You're going to have to help me.
I can just click show on it so you can see it too.
Okay.
But he says, people, how does preacheritis play into this? People who heap praise on the preacher because he is their favorite, and they don't want him to leave.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't really know how to answer that.
I'm not sure.
I don't know how it plays into it. I know that that flattery and love bombing play into preacheritis. Because, I mean, if I've flattered the preacher and love bombed the preacher and he and I are pretty tight, I've got him right where I want him. I wouldn't want another preacher to come in and have to do all that work over with.
Exactly.
So, I mean, it's definitely related.
Yep. I think so too.
Definitely related. Well, we've got, hold on, where is it? I sent a document to you of some notes that I gathered.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I've got it drawn up.
Flattery and love bombing, although seemingly benign or even positive at first glance, hold potential dangers both in interpersonal relationships and from a biblical perspective. These behaviors can be manipulative, aiming to influence or control another's behavior through undue praise or affection. I used undue because flattery is undue. Like if Aaron, if I had to visit the States tomorrow, and then I set in Aaron Dotson's Wednesday night class, and he does a good job, he's probably never going to hear it from me, because Aaron's supposed to be doing a good job. Aaron has been, how long you been preaching, Aaron?
Since 2002, however long that is.
Is that longer? That's longer than 20 years.
It's like 20 years or something.
Yeah, you're
I've been preaching and teaching publicly.
You are supposed to be doing a good job.
Yeah.
So if after your Wednesday night class, if I come up to you, shake your hand, Aaron, that was amazing. I'm so happy. You're so good. That's undue praise and affection.
Yep.
Now, if I come up to Aaron and say, Aaron, man, you taught on Romans 13. I've never considered what you said tonight. I really was interested in that, and I really appreciate you, and I appreciate your studiousness. That's not undue.
Yeah.
That is not undue.
Yeah. That's honest, and it's carefully placed.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
That's why I like when I hear someone that should be doing a good job in preaching and what they're doing what they're supposed to do, you know, and I enjoyed it. I say, hey, thanks for what you did. Keep up the good work. You know, just things like that. You don't, that's not undue. Preachers need to hear, keep doing the good work. Keep going. Don't give up, you know.
Or, well done.
Yeah.
Like if I shake his, like if I'm at Washington Avenue, he's done preaching, I'll shake his hand. Well done. That was a good lesson.
Yep.
There's nothing at all wrong with that.
No. If you honestly thought it was a great lesson, it's okay to say, great lesson. I enjoyed it. I mean.
Absolutely. Woof. Yeah. Okay. Scott, I'm glad you said that. I know people who give the preacher gift cards to restaurants and other gifts may just be an expression of thanks. Honestly, this is a much better practice than heaping accolades on them publicly.
Yep. Yes.
Like if I got a card in the mail with $25 Starbucks, says, hey, preacher, this is the Smith family. We're really glad that you're here at the Main Street Church of Christ. You and your wife go enjoy some coffee on us.
That's something that only them and God sees and knows.
Yeah.
And I know you've talked some, this is me coming out of our personal relationship with each other, but I know sometimes you have made the point of like, don't be the person that only privately praises someone, but then in public you turn on them. That's not that. That's not what I'm talking about.
We're going to talk about that at the last segment, actually.
Okay. Yeah. But like it is something more personal and intimate and genuine when you do something for that person privately. You don't have to brag on them in public. You can show your gratitude toward them privately. Like there's something intimate you want to say to them, like, you know, the way you do your sermons has really helped me a lot. Like I might feel more comfortable telling a friend that's a preacher that privately than saying that from the pulpit after he comes to the congregation where I'm at and he does a meeting.
Yeah.
It might feel like I'm just like puffing him up or something.
What about when you go somewhere to preach and the fella that introduces you sets you up like you're the second coming?
I know. That's
and like
awful.
you get up there and you're like, man, I don't belong in this pulpit because I'm not the guy that this man introduced.
I know. It's like I would like to think that just ignoring it and going straight to this text helps, and I think it can, but sometimes you want to say something like,
I know it. Man,
you didn't need to say all that.
It hit me like a ton of bricks when I watched Dan Winkler in 2013, I think it was. It was the very first Memphis School of Preaching lectureship that I attended, and I attended it as a student.
Mm-hmm.
And it was that Monday night. He preached this amazing sermon. And my perception of him was that he was 7 feet tall.
Mm-hmm.
And then after the sermon was ended, he in my mind, he visibly shrinks. And he walks down those 5 steps of the Forest Hill Church of Christ raised dais.
Yeah.
And he sits down in the pew. Brother Mosier gets up to close everything out. And Brother Mosier tries to speak to Dan Winkler. And Dan Winkler is sitting there. He's not man spread. His knees are together. His shoulders, his shoulders not back. His shoulders are curled in. And he's bent kind of like he's trying to duck down.
Yep.
And I may be reading so much into this that's not there.
But that's the way it looked like to you. Like he felt little after he preached.
Or he tried to purposefully make himself little after he preached so as not to take away from the lesson.
Yep. I know the feeling. I don't know if I purposely tried to make myself little, but I know when I get done preaching, sometimes there's different things. You just feel like I didn't do that justice, or who am I to be saying that? You know, you trying to exalt Christ and the Word of God and everything, and the Word of God's a mirror. If you're honest with it, man, it hits you hard. It's like,
I know.
It's like, man, you really came to. It's like one brother, he's passed on that I loved and appreciated. He's a good example. This is in another area where I preached. He was a good example of someone who I had a personal relationship with him as a brother in Christ, and he often said words of affirmation, to me.
Right.
But I truly believe he was very sincere and genuine. He just kind of like the type of person he was. And there were a few times where privately I might address something, that if I felt it was too much, but he just really appreciated, because he would say that, preaching the word of God the way you do, I think you try to handle the text carefully. And those are the kinds of things, and that's made a difference in me, that made a change in me. And so he would often, what I felt like, brag on me, but he would often say, here's my point. When you point your finger like that, you've heard it. You've got 3 pointing back at yourself.
Yeah.
And I always remember him for saying that, and that's what you have to remember.
Yeah, absolutely. So many good comments, guys. I did not realize this would be this hot of a topic.
Yeah.
This is what I wanted to bring. For those, look, if I haven't said hi to you, if we haven't said hi to you, we should have. So we're glad you're here. Anyway, I think I saw Terry Crooks. Now, I don't think we said hi to Terry Crooks, and I don't think there's anybody else, though. Anyway, let us always consider the source before shaking our fist or glaring at another. Yeah. And that gets in the idea of judging with a righteous judgment. We don't want to deal with intentions, because a lot of times we get it wrong.
Yeah.
We just deal with actions. And that's about all I can say about that. And then John Exum's got a couple of, and I don't like, and don't be like the visiting preacher who says, that's not how I'd do it. Or the man who makes rules for preachers regarding matters of opinion. Yeah, man, it's people just don't understand how rude they are.
Yeah.
And inconsiderate they come off whenever they give compliments to a visiting preacher.
Yeah.
Like, it's the worst. People just don't understand. Like, oh, preacher, that's awesome. We haven't heard preaching like that in 20 years. And I'm like, then you need to show up more.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, what do you mean? That's another thing. Sometimes people, I don't know if they're trying to praise or not, or criticize even. Like, you just don't know what people.
Yeah. I'm with you. This past Sunday night, and your West Coast, Jason Campbell's got a comment we're definitely going to look at. It's a good one. This past Sunday night, a sister told me out loud that she didn't know about the 7 Beatitudes in Revelation, and she appreciated me for teaching that. Yeah. That is the type of thing that makes me sure that I'm doing right.
I know.
I got to go to the eye doctor.
You should.
I'm going to get a crick in my
You can
neck.
only line them things up so much.
I know. If I don't do something, I'm going to just get a magnifying glass. Anyway.
It's like, I want people to walk away. This past Sunday, incidentally, I preached on a subject that you had recently handled with the Holy Spirit, and I used the Bereans as the example. Yeah, and I preached on that.
They were able to understand the Bible without having the Holy Spirit.
Exactly.
According to all the arguments. Now,
right. And I preached that. And I also dealt with 1 Corinthians 2 very closely, because that's the passage.
The inspiration.
Yeah, I went to that. We covered a chunk of it, and I wanted people to walk away going, either I'm reconfirmed what I already believed that was what it was true, or now I know what 1 Corinthians 2 actually means, and now I can tell, because I pitched the sermon that way. Like, folks, it may be that there's not somebody here that believes in this hocus pocus. I wouldn't be surprised if there is, though. I said this infiltrates the church. But bottom line, even if there's nobody here that believes this hocus pocus, there are millions of people who do. There are plenty of people in your family in the city that do. We need to know how to handle those texts to answer the error,
Yep. Oh, I cannot tell you how many times I've been told by members of the Lord's church who would preach cessationism staunchly, also out of the other side of their mouth say, you can't understand the Bible without help from the Holy Spirit.
Wow.
What?
That's out there.
What is it?
It's like, but the Bereans did.
The Bereans did. That's the, if the argument is, I don't want to make the podcast about
I know.
that, but it gets me excited. Our faith ought to rest in the power of God, not in the wisdom of men.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to have a Bible verse for that, but there is one.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
You don't have to have a Bible verse for people to understand that axiom.
Yep. That's exactly what Paul, that's how he did his ministry.
But you got one. All right.
Yep.
Here's the one. I wonder how many making comments are preachers. It is a sensitive topic we as preachers, especially younger preachers, may have a difficult time addressing or responding to. I think that's the big issue is when I say young preachers, I'm not talking about young preachers as in young in age. Because you can be 25 years old and for a decade have been preaching the gospel, okay?
Yeah.
But gospel preachers that are just starting out, young preachers as in you might be 45 years old and decide to go to the Memphis School of Preaching. So you're 47 when you graduate.
Yeah.
And then you get your first work at 47, you're a young preacher.
Yeah.
And unless you have been made aware of these certain pitfalls, then I would say it's very difficult to navigate. Yeah. And, John Exum is a preacher. Aaron, you and I are preachers.
Yeah. Jason is.
Jason is a preacher.
Yep.
That may be it. As far as this live stream
that I recognize, yeah. Maybe over.
No, Robert Leedy. Robert Leedy's a gospel preacher.
Okay, yeah.
In fact, dude, Robert Leedy, talk about flattery and love bombing. Robert Leedy, he wrote a humdinger of an article for the Christianity Now blog. What does the Bible teach about judging? And I played with it a little bit with artificial intelligence and got the entire article narrated with B-roll footage and stuff like that. And I put it up on our TikTok, which folks don't even know. I don't even say we've got a TikTok. Anyway, it got like almost 2,000 views on TikTok. Got several good views on YouTube and stuff like that. It's interesting. Anyway.
Hey, and I agree with what you just said about his article that turned into that video. And here's my motive. I want y'all to check out Christianity Now on Substack.
That's right.
I'm being honest with you. I'm telling you up front.
That's
and check
right.
out the videos that we're trying to put out online.
Yeah.
And I agree because it was good. It was good material.
Yeah. So often you hear the topic addressed. Here's what not to do. Here's what not to do. Or here's why judging is bad. Here's why judging is bad. Right. Or you hear an article, here's how judging is good, here's how judging is good. And his article was, no, listen, there's 3 types of judging.
Yep.
And 2 of them are bad, and 1 of them is actually commanded by God.
Mm-hmm.
It's just helpful, and it resonated with people. All right. Sorry, Robert Leedy, if you're listening. We didn't mean to make you feel embarrassed. What kind of God would give a book to man that he would have to have supernatural help to understand? Not the God we worship. Anyway,
that's right.
I recommend preachers read the evangelist epistle every week, and maybe Tom Holland's book, Encouraging Preachers. The evangelist epistles, that would be what other folks call the pastoral epistles. I kind of eschew that. I understand what they mean, but it's just so semantically overloaded. I do rather like them being called the evangelist epistles or the T epistles. But anyway, First and Second Timothy, Second Timothy, and Titus would be really good reads. And if you read them every day, that would be good. And you can read them every day.
Yeah, because they're not very long. That's why I would say you could read them every day. They're not very long at all.
Yep.
It's amazing how much God put in there in one little letter. It's like he knows exactly what he's doing.
Rob Leedy said he's flattered.
I'm flattered, my fella.
Sorry, Rob.
Hey, let me flatter you with some verses. It's amazing how many passages in the scriptures there are about flattery.
Yeah.
Psalms and Proverbs and everything. I know John's put a few up. I know you had some in the article that you did Is that
Yep.
released yet, by the way? I didn't get the order on that.
No, it's not.
Okay.
It ain't even an article.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to have to
It's something you put
organize this
together and
into
just
an
share it with
article.
me on the show. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's just for the show notes.
Yeah.
The show map, rather.
Yeah, yeah. Psalm 5:9.
Yeah,
There is no
boy.
faithfulness in their mouth. Their inward part is destruction. Their throat is an open tomb. They flatter with their tongue. Verse 10, pronounce them guilty, O God.
I know. Destroy thou them, the King James says.
Yeah. It's like
it's
let them
flattery
fall by
can
their own
absolutely destroy a congregation.
Yep.
Love bombing and flattery. And people don't realize it. What about Proverbs 26:28? A lying tongue hateth those that are afflicted by it, and a flattering mouth worketh ruin. According to the way we define things in Hebrew parallelism, a lying tongue is the same as a mouth that worketh ruin, or a flattering mouth, rather. Mm-hmm. A lying tongue is the same as a flattering mouth. And like I said, it's destructive.
Yeah, absolutely. Proverbs 29:5, a man who flatters his neighbor spreads a net for his feet. So you're trapping your neighbor. You're going to trip your neighbor up by flattering them.
That's it. Because I hate to say it, but think about a rattlesnake. Everything about a rattlesnake is made to make you not want to be around it and to make you to raise your hackles.
Yeah.
Everything about in nature, like poison dart frogs in the jungle, they're some of the brightest, most colorful things you've ever seen. That tells you to stay away from them.
Yeah.
Like something's loud, something's bright, something's in your face. Like, oh, we need to. There's something there that we need to stay away from. Certain caterpillars are like that.
Yep.
The fertilance viper. You ought to look that thing up.
Yeah.
It's one of the most beautiful snakes I've ever seen in my life, but it has an exceptionally deadly neurotoxin. I think, like the gaboon viper, I think it's called the 4-step snake or the something like that.
I think I'm looking at it online. Some pretty colors.
Beautiful, is it not?
Mm-hmm.
That means stay away from me.
Yeah. Says it has a tendency to be aggressive.
Yeah. Well, the reason flattery is so, and this is the tactic of a love bomber. They want you to drop your guard and lower your boundaries and make yourself vulnerable so they can get in and figure out what they need to have in order to leverage and control you.
Isn't that what hustlers can do or do?
That's exactly.
I mean, that's hustling.
Yeah. Yep. Oh yeah, playing pool. You feign like you have a much lower skill level than you normally have, and then boom, drop that hammer.
Manipulate. I mean, the thing about it is it's for manipulative purposes.
Absolutely. Yeah, Mormons are known for love bombing visitors, which almost pressure the visitors to become Mormons. Love is sacrificial. Love bombing is selfish. You got that right. Mm-hmm. I looked it up. I wanted to get the definition. Love bombing. Interestingly enough, when I Googled through Google Chrome, love bombing,
what came up?
The very first thing was National Domestic Violence Hotline.
Wow.
According to Psychology Today, love bombing is an attempt to influence another person with over-the-top displays of attention and affection. This kind of behavior is a form of emotional abuse, and although it can be experienced during any stage of a relationship, it's often seen in the early stages of getting to actual physical violence.
What site was that again? Not the actual URL, but what was it about? It was about
The National Domestic Violence Hotline.
So a domestic violence hotline recognizes this. This is not some mere church problem. Like this is.
Oh no, yeah, it's
this is what.
Here's
this is
13
a problem of mankind.
Exactly. There's 13 signs of love bombing. The person who love bombs, they make grand romantic gestures or give extravagant gifts. All right. They always compliment you. They promote excessive communication. They request constant attention. They demand commitment. They resist your boundaries. They make, quote unquote, soulmate claims. They say, I love you very, very quickly. I want to come back to that one. They're good at saying what you want to hear, saying to you what you want to hear. They feel too good to be true. They make immediate promises about the future, and they put you on a pedestal. Now, the reason this is so nefarious is because whenever you put somebody on a pedestal, you're not putting them on the pedestal. You're putting your perception and desire for what they would be on a pedestal, and you're interacting with that.
And you're making them something they're not.
Exactly. Now, they say, I love you very, very quickly. That is one of the biggest red flags for me. If somebody says, oh, we're brothers in Christ, I see you online. Now, they could say, I just love you. Your podcast is awesome. That's different. Okay?
Yeah.
But if they're like, hey, what's up? I see you online. You know, I really love you. You're such a good man of God. You're such a good... That is what this is talking about.
You and I have encountered people that disagreed with us online, individually and collectively together.
Yeah.
And the person that disagreed was making comments like, I love you. And it's like, what? I don't know. It just makes it awkward. Like, why are you saying that? Like, you never said it before, or, you know, you've never reached out to me privately, or I don't even know you personally. And it's just some of the thought. I mean, I'm not trying to be, you know, again, can't judge motives, but you have to be discerning. Like, why are they doing this? What? Well, I've never had any kind of... You know who I'm talking about if you thought for just a second who I'm talking about. But we had one individual that was one of our, I'll just go ahead and say it because it's pretty public, one of our past classmates, you know, from school. Say, I love you guys, love y'all. After he just pretty much dogged us out, you know. I know. It's like, it just doesn't sound like he was trying to cover himself for what he had done. It was okay because he loves us or so. I don't know. It's just.
Yeah. Well, if you love me, maybe treat me lovingly.
I know.
You know, but what I'm talking about is people that say I love you very quickly. Yeah. Like you go to polishing the pulpit and you meet somebody, and the first time you ever meet them, they tell you that they love you. And I'm like, no, we're strangers. You don't know me.
Yeah.
You don't know me like that. You know, hugging on you and just like, come on, dude.
They may think they mean it, but it's like, we need to be careful and thoughtful about how we say we love someone.
Yes.
I mean, and that's the thing. That's the thing that I think.
I know. And the same person that will do this, that will hug you and kiss you and tell you they love you, and they just met you, that what that same person will do is if you say, hey, wait a second, this violates my boundaries. Don't hug and kiss me. Don't tell me you love me. They will use scripture and they will say, well, you're not a very loving person. You must not love me. Well, I don't love you. I have an agape. I'm going to treat you lovingly, which is what I'm commanded to do. But right now, I do not love you like that. Yeah. I will act in a loving way, but there's no emotion. There's no emotional connection between us two just because you're a Christian and I'm a Christian.
If there's two brethren and one, they've never met, and one of them says they love the other. I wonder, the person that says that, do they mean they agape love them? Like, I don't know you except that you're a member of the Lord's church, and I agape love you as a brother. Or do they mean like an affectionate phileo? Well, I think the way people say it, they mean it like phileo.
Yeah, that's the problem.
And it's like, how do you know me? Like,
that's the problem with love bombing and flattery, is because it's empty.
Yep.
It's empty.
Insincere. Yep.
Like, there's no reason for you to tell another Christian, I love you, within the first 30 minutes that you meet them, because you're commanded to love them. It's an action. It's not a feeling or an emotion.
You know, one thing I was going to ask you, what I was going to ask you was, or one thing I wanted to ask you, I wonder if a lot of this is a learned behavior from others, like a family, you know, a generational type, where there's been manipulation and constantly telling them they love each other and that kind of thing. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It could be. I know that on one side of my family, these people, I remember, like, well, y'all just see each other once a year, and every time you see each other, you hug and kiss on one another and talk about how much you love each other. The farthest any of you live away from one another is an hour. So I don't believe you whenever you say you love me.
Yeah. We ought to get together more often. You never do.
Well, you know, the road runs right up to my house. You know?
Yep.
All right. Tony, notice this from Paul. Now, I urge you, brothers, to keep your eye on those who cause dissensions and stumblings, contrary to the teachings which you learnt, and turn away from them, for such men are slaves, not of our Lord Christ, but of their own stomach, of their smooth and flattering speech.
Yep.
They deceive the hearts of the hearts of the unsuspecting. That's the problem. It's the hearts of the unsuspecting, and that's what this show is about, to make it where you're no longer unsuspecting.
Mm-hmm.
Don't let anybody make you feel like you're a bad person for having healthy boundaries. I don't want you to hug and kiss on me. I don't want you to tell me you love me. I don't want you to tell me how great I am.
Yep.
Show me how you feel by your actions. You may say that you have love towards me, but you don't act lovingly towards me. I will show you that I love you by my actions.
Yep. Kind of sounds like James's words about faith and works.
Delilah flattered Samson, and look at the consequences.
Mm-hmm.
Poor old Samson. He didn't have a hope nor a prayer. That woman had him twisted inside out and upside down.
Samson was thinking sensually.
Samson was not using the brain.
That's right.
To think with.
He was not.
Sorry about that. Anyway, a fable where a cow has a piece of cheese and a fox wanting it for himself flatters the crow, calling it beautiful, and asks if its voice is as sweet. The crow caws, and the cheese falls to the fox. Let me tell you something. Aesop's fables are amazing.
Is that what that is?
Yeah.
Cool.
I love Aesop's fables. I read Aesop's fables growing up. I read Aesop's fables as a child. But anyway.
And you read them not too long ago when you used to do the audio books on YouTube. Or not
well, I did do a few,
YouTube.
Didn't I?
Yeah.
I did do a few when I did the audio books.
Yep.
What am I doing here, Aaron?
Well, we're talking about, I guess, the dangers of it, like manipulation, insincerity,
yeah, let's do that.
Dependency. We did talk about manipulation a little bit.
Yeah.
Unless there's something else you want to say, but.
Well, let me, both flattery and love bombing can be forms of manipulation. They're often used to lower an individual's guard to sway them into thinking positively of the flatterer, which can lead to unhealthy power dynamics or control.
Yep.
So yeah, be careful. But then insincerity, you want to take that one?
Yeah, these behaviors of flattery and love bombing can signal insincerity, where the expressed admiration or love is not rooted in genuine feelings, but rather in an agenda to influence or to gain something from the other person. That summarizes, what we've been talking about, I think.
Absolutely. Dependency. Now, this is particularly with love bombing. It can create an unhealthy dependency with the recipient, becoming emotionally attached to the flatterer and reliant on approval and affection. So love bombing is a way to get vulnerable people to enter into an unhealthy, maladaptive, codependent relationship with the flatterer or the love bomber.
Yeah.
And again, it's all of its abuse.
How do you say that next? Emotional volatility? Volatility?
Yeah, Brandon Wild. I was almost loath to say the word narcissism. Here's the problem when you say the word narcissism has become so semantically overloaded.
Yeah.
Whenever I say narcissism, I am not talking about narcissistic personality disorder.
Yeah.
I am just talking about the personality trait, narcissism, which everybody has that personality trait. If you have ever advocated for self, you have exhibited narcissistic behavior. Okay? Narcissism, the word narcissist, comes from a Greek myth where this water sprite falls in love with this very handsome guy, and this guy spurns her advances. She withers away to nothing, and she can only echo back. She can only repeat back the things that is said to her. And that's why today, whenever you yell, you hear it yelled back at you. That's where we get the echo. But anyway, the guy was cursed by one of the goddesses in the pantheon of gods to fall in love with the very next thing he saw. And lo and behold, he bent down and he looked at himself in his reflection on the surface of a still body of water. And he was so hopelessly in love with that young man in the water that he wasted away and died. And a flower grew out from his rotting corpse that was very, very beautiful, just like he was. And that's the flower, the narcissus. And that's where we get this word narcissist. So if you're a narcissist, that's a description of somebody who is looking out for self.
Yeah.
Everybody has narcissistic tendencies. If Aaron Dotson comes to Riverview, New Brunswick, and he says, you know what? I really like your sound equipment, Tony. I'm just going to take your sound equipment back home to Arkansas. I am going to be narcissistic. Like, no, this is my sound equipment. I bought this with my own. This sound this sound equipment I did buy this with my own money. It's very, very expensive. We bought it back whenever we were making that United States money, me and LeBeth. Anyway. Well, does that mean I think less of Aaron? I mean, I think Aaron deserves sound equipment like this, but I'm narcissistic, so I ain't going to buy him. I ain't going to buy it for him.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, so my point is, a lot of times today, with the inundation of mental health education by the masses because of platforms like YouTube and stuff like that, I think people will say, well, that person is narcissistic, and they think narcissistic personality disorder, but that's not the case. Narcissistic personality disorder is actually quite rare.
Yeah.
But everybody has some narcissistic tendencies. And Brandon Wild says, I was thinking entitled. Yeah, now that, yes, entitlement, a sense of entitlement, stuff like that. Yeah. All right, that was my, anyway, emotional volatility. Individuals who employ, was you going to read that or me?
I don't know, but I can, it don't matter.
Well, get her done.
Yeah, all right. Individuals who employ flattery or love bombing may react negatively when their expectations are not met or when they perceive a shift in control or affection. They may withdraw affection, become hostile, or manipulate further to regain their perceived position of influence.
I have seen people who love bomb and flatter, whenever you put a wall up and be like, hey, listen, I've got to back off from you, they take it as a personal insult.
Mm-hmm.
And they do everything they can to rope you back in.
Mm-hmm.
They'll put out Facebook posts. They'll talk to your friends. They'll talk to anybody they can. They tell you how bad they are, how bad you are, and this, that, and the other.
You think you're a goody-goody. He's uppity.
I know.
He's hi-hatting me.
Yep. And
I've had that done to me before.
Oh, yeah. But the rage.
Mm-hmm.
The rage.
Because they're not getting what they want.
Yes.
That's it.
Yes.
Yep.
And if you do have somebody that's treating you this way and you don't know how to break free from them, do what's called gray rocking. Now, what does that mean? Well, you need to be about as interesting as a gray rock. Whenever they text you, send them back 1 or 2 word responses. Only deal with what they say, because you may be dealing with somebody like this that you cannot physically separate from.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for instance, it could be your boss at work.
Yeah.
It could be your coworker. It could be, so you just gray rock them.
Yeah.
And let me tell you something. People who have these tendencies, I almost said narcissists, but people that have these tendencies that are entitled like this, that practice this kind of stuff, they're pretty attuned to changes in behavior. And they'll pick up on it real quick whenever you're handling them. Mm-hmm. And it makes them mad.
Yeah, when they don't get what they want, that's when they act out in different ways. And like sometimes in the church, it can be like anonymous letters.
Oh, yeah.
And just stuff like
it's
that.
stupid stuff like, well, you and I used to text back and forth on a regular basis, and now you no longer text me. I'm like, wait a second. You telling me that has the same energy as a husband sitting down with his wife and saying, look, you need to submit to me as if I were Jesus. And Paul said that your body's not your own, so you don't ever need to deny me for sex.
Yeah. Like, that's going to go across real good.
Uh-huh.
It's going to go over real good.
That's
you
it.
used to text me, and now you don't. And manipulation.
Oh, John, you can make jokes again. You've redeemed yourself with this one comment. All the terrible jokes that you told today, you're open back up for this show. What about one who gish gallops? Now, if you don't know, a gish gallop is a debate tactic that's kind of scummy. You overwhelm your opponent with arguments, irrespective of the efficacy or power or strength of the argument.
Yeah.
So basically, like, they can't deal with everything you said. So what about the one who gish gallops? They send 1 million things in one text or email. I do not respond to all that. I ignore. And actually, the easiest way to respond to that is TLDR. And if they say, well, what's that mean? It means too long, didn't read.
Yeah.
And then before we give Diana Harden a complex, we're going to read hers. I don't want her to think it's TLDR. For many years, I've noticed that when a new preacher comes, those in the quote-unquote popular crowd in a congregation will shower them with flattery, etc., to get him on their side because they want to continue running the show. I've had that happen.
Oh, that's so common.
And let me tell you something, right, wrong, or indifferent, when I see a power dynamic like that, I try to hit it with a hammer.
Yeah.
I try to break it.
Yeah, and one of the ways you can do that too is validate the people they don't like.
Let me tell you something. As a gospel preacher, if you want to get run off real quick, start visiting and building a relationship with the second-class citizens in a congregation.
Yeah, with the outcast, with the ones that everybody thinks are weirdos.
I had a woman with tears in her eyes said, I've been a member of that congregation for 40 years, and I think this isn't but about the 3rd time a preacher's ever sat in my living room with me.
I had a member of the church who is now deceased tell me years ago that I was the first preacher that ever visited them, and it shocked me.
Yeah, I know.
because of the context of her life, it shocked me. I was
Yes.
like, wow.
All right. To get him on their side because they want to continue, quote unquote, running the show and controlling things in the church. And often the preacher seeks out those in the popular crowd because it benefits him too. That gets back to Neil Abbott's comment about, I'm much more afraid of the preacher who flatters as opposed to the other person, who, like the member who flatters. The preacher, before long, the preacher's catering to this crowd and excluding the others. This is a problem in many congregations. It hurts the Lord's church. You know what a really easy way to solve this problem is? You would think it would be, well, the preacher needs to visit those outcasts, the people that, no, the preacher needs to quit doing the work of an elder.
Amen. Yep.
In fact, I don't think the preacher, I'm going to say it's going to be a hot take, and we got haters that watch us all the time and take things that I say out of context and try to ruin my reputation, which my reputation's already ruined with the Church of Christ. I don't care. Okay.
Yeah.
I've seen what makes you cheer. I don't care about your booze, you despicable, gossipy, terrible, hate-filled people. You're going to bust hell wide open. Go run and tell that.
I love that video you did earlier on character that you put on Christianity Now that we shared. That's what it's about, not the reputation. But go ahead.
That's it.
What was the hot take? Just that
I don't think a gospel preacher should ever go visit a congregant unless they're with an elder.
Yeah.
And in lieu of elders, you should never visit a member of the congregation alone. You need to take with you a quote unquote member of the congregation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's the reason is because we've got preachers that are pseudo pastors doing the job of elders. We got elders that do the job of deacons. Deacons don't have a clue what to do because nobody's told them. And the members, they don't have a shepherd in the congregations. They're not a real one. They're scattered to the four winds.
They're expecting the preacher to do what the pastors are supposed to do.
That's it.
When they don't get what they want a new preacher.
That's it. You got a 300-member congregation, and 299 of them are paying one man to fulfill their obligation to the Lord.
Yep. And that's why
hyperbolic, obviously.
That's why there's so much burnout and people go crazy too.
Scott Beck says, it may be extreme, but I've read that flattery was part of Jim Jones' tactics to gain followers. I guarantee it. Flattery, love bombing, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, John Exum. I hang out with the less popular. Jesus did. All my favorite people are the outcast.
Mm-hmm.
All my favorite people are the outcast. I'm here to preach. I'm not here to please.
Amen.
That's it. All right.
Yep.
Excellent stuff. I tell you what, John, not Aaron, you're not. Okay. So we've looked at, we're going to have a very short final segment.
Yeah,
but I do think we need to look at this section
guidance.
For responding to flattery and love bombing. Yeah. Pick up that.
Yeah.
Take the first one there.
Yeah. The first thing that we can do is we need to seek discernment. Need to be discerning people. Like Ephesians 5:6, let no man deceive you with vain words. And in the same chapter, I think like 5:16, walk circumspectly, walk carefully.
You got to have your head on a swivel.
Yeah.
Circum is circular, spect is spectacle. You got to walk looking around.
Yep. Be alert. That's not being negative. People confuse that. Well, you're just skeptical. You're being negative. It's like, no, God commands me to be looking and my head to be rotating. Like, be careful.
And don't be jaded.
Right.
Like if you don't know me from Adam's uncle and I show up on Sunday, take, what's your friend's name that's on the West Coast? Where's he at?
Jason. Yeah, Jason.
Cooper?
Campbell.
I'm so sorry. Let's say I go to the West Coast and lo and behold, there's Jason Campbell up there preaching. I'm going to be excited. Like, that's serendipitous.
Yep.
Now, I have a very effervescent personality. If you don't know what that means, let me Google it for you. How do you spell effervescent?
I don't know, but I've heard the word many a times. I should know.
Right here, effervescent. It's when it when it talks about liquid, it's giving off bubbles, fizzy. Also, it means vivacious and enthusiastic. So, if you have a effervescent, in fact, I was on the phone with somebody and I got a little excited with myself, and I said, "Listen, I'm sorry, I get a little excited." He said, "Well, you're enthusiastic. That's good." I said, "Well, until it turns into effervescence, and I can run the risk of being effervescent." Now, think about effervescent. Plop, plop, fizz, fizz. Oh, what a relief it is. What is that? Alka-Seltzer.
Yeah.
Alka-Seltzer advertises its effervescence. Now, what do you know about effervescence or Alka-Seltzer? It tastes absolutely horrible. It makes you want to throw up, but it works.
It gets the job done.
It gets the job done.
Yeah.
Anyway, all jokes aside, if I see Jason Campbell, is that his name? No, Cooper. Campbell.
No, Campbell. Yeah.
So I see Jason Campbell. I'm on vacation. I'm excitable. I lean a little towards effervescent. So I'm going to have trouble keeping proper decorum. That might throw some red flags up with him. There's nothing wrong with that. So what he shouldn't do is he shouldn't be like, well, this dude told me how awesome it was for him to see me, so he must be a flatterer. No, you judge with a righteous judgment. And you also, not that I've offended him, but you also turn the other cheek. You're like, you know what? This was a little bit of a red flag, but it's not going to hurt me to give him the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
And see what his character is, even though he spread the mustard a little too thick in the beginning, which I guarantee you in that situation, I'm either going to come off as cold and uncaring, or I'm going to come off as a little effervescent because I know myself.
Too thick.
Yeah, I know myself.
Yeah.
So my point is, you want to be careful with this, and you don't want to become so jaded that everything somebody says or does that's positive towards you, you do. I can't remember the fella. I think it's Danny Mentor that was putting stuff in the comment section like, we want to consider the source before we glare at somebody, or we don't want to deal with it. We don't want to ever consider us the arbiters of what somebody intends.
Well, think about Paul. Paul said and wrote positive things about people, in his personal life that other people read.
Yeah.
Somebody could say, well, he's just blowing smoke up,
Yeah.
Why did he talk about Aquila and Priscilla to the church over here and over yonder? And they're not even living over yonder now. They're in another town. And well, there's multiple reasons for that. They're good examples, but also he was thankful for them, and he wanted them to know and identify and praise in a good way people that serve God faithfully.
Yep.
Build them up. Use discernment.
I'm with you. Okay, where were we? I want to
maintain integrity.
There we go.
Go ahead.
Yeah, maintain integrity. Maintaining one's integrity in the face of flattery can serve as a protection against being swayed against insincere praise. The integrity of the upright shall guide him. And we probably should have used that one last, because that segues right into Proverbs 27. You need to know who you are. You need to have integrity to the point where it doesn't matter what somebody says to you. You're going to be who you're going to be.
Yeah.
Period.
You don't float with the wind. You're true to yourself and your beliefs and your practices all the time, no matter who's around you.
That's right.
Foster genuine relationships.
That's it.
Biblical teachings emphasize the value of sincerity, truth, and love in relationships. Romans 12:9. Let love be without dissimulation, hypocrisy. Abhor that which is evil. Cleave to that which is good.
Yeah.
Foster genuine relationships.
Interestingly enough, have you ever thought about the word dissimulation and what it means to let love be with? Okay, Aaron, I love you. But then I treat you very unlovingly.
Yeah, that's to dissimulate.
I have not, with my actions, emulated the concept of love, but rather I have disemulated
with my actions.
With my actions. However, if I say, Aaron, I love you, and then I treat you lovingly, then I have emulated with my actions the concept of love.
If our actions are we go in and out of the worship assembly like passing ships in the night, we say and claim we love each other, are we not dissimulating love? How are we,
Maybe you want to shut your mouth before you cause anybody any trouble.
I just think that what we think, we justify our lack of fostering genuine relationships with I'm busy or my personality or we have a lot of differences. I don't have anything common. They're older than me. They're younger. We got all the perfect excuses.
I know.
Of why we're not fostering genuine relationships. That we have Christ in common should be sufficient to at least learn to grow together. Like, you don't have to be the very best of friends in the whole wide world with every individual in the congregation, but you can build a camaraderie and an appreciation for someone you have nothing in common with except Christ.
Yes, and honestly,
I've been blessed by it.
Social media has made it more difficult than ever. To form meaningful connection with people who hold vastly different views than you outside of Christ. In Christ.
It ostracizes those people. It belittles those people. It treats them as issues and not people.
That's it.
Categorizes them, etc.
Well, he believes that when you die, you go straight to heaven instead of paradise. He believes that
the gift of the Holy Spirit. And
he believes you're going to live on a renovated earth or stuff like that. I'm like, well, okay, let's talk. I mean, I'm going to treat you as a human being.
Well, I just can't believe he'd believe that, though. I mean, why would you believe in a renovated earth? That's just stupid. See, that's how.
Well, you think it's stupid, but there's been very smart people in our brotherhood that believe we're going to live on a renovated earth. And here's the thing. Whatever your concept of that doctrine is, I would be willing to bet you $100 against a thin dime that whatever your concept of that doctrine is, it is not what that particular brother believes. It's kind of like the idea of meeting the guys like, well, I'm just going to have to be a eunuch for the kingdom for the rest of my life. I put my wife away for irreconcilable differences. Well, what was the irreconcilable differences? Well, every Friday she'd have my buddy over to the house and have sex with him all weekend. That's a difference that's mighty hard to reconcile.
Fornication, man. That's Matthew 19.
Exactly. Yeah, well, he's out of fellowship. He believes in renovated earth. Well, go over there and ask him exactly what he believes.
You might be surprised.
Don't just take the title of his quote unquote doctrine.
But Tony, I read a book that a lectureship did, and I know what he believes. I'm sorry, I'm getting.
Oh, I can't tell. Oh, yeah, you're going to bust hell wide open if that's your attitude.
That's why we treat people. We're like, well, I read about this.
Well, you understand that
I know what he believes.
That is the definition of bigot.
Yes, it is.
If I know that Scott Beck, but I ain't going to use him. John Smith believes that we're going to live on a renovated earth. So I know that he believes, and you have 6 or 7 lines of,
you elucidate some points.
Well, the problem is you haven't talked to him.
How do you know?
And what John Smith believes is, wait a second. Alexander Campbell believed in the parsimony of God, and that just like an individual, when he dies, you cannot annihilate God. You cannot annihilate that individual. God made this cosmos. He is not going to annihilate it. I believe that when the trumpet sounds, the dead rise, the living, and all of them going to meet in the clouds, that everything in this universe is going to be reduced to a molecular singularity, and then it's going to be reformed in the ethereal region so we can have a place to be. Okay, that sounds kind of far out there, but there is nothing damnable in what I said.
Right. Exactly.
And that's the doctrine that a lot of these folks believe. And so you gotta let love be without dissimulation, and you got to agree to disagree about that, and you got to develop a relationship with that individual. Maslow, come here, buddy.
I like
Y'all,
Scott's.
that dude was having a nightmare. Come here, man. Were you fighting in your sleep?
Poor guy was asleep and he was having a nightmare.
Dude, it was like he was fighting off a whole pack of coyotes or something.
He needs some talk therapy. Talk to him about it.
I'm telling you, I'll talk to him.
Maybe he'll bark it out.
All right. Let's go to Proverbs 27.
Yeah.
And real quickly,
And real quick, Scott Beck, what you have up there, if only our phones had a scam alert.
Oh, yeah, when they try to love bomb.
Yeah.
Scott Beck also says, thanks for sparing me. Yeah, I would hate for that soundbite to get clipped and get out in the brotherhood that you're a New Heavens, New Earth guy.
Yeah.
Diana Hardens, thank you very much for that. We need more preachers like Tony and Aaron who care about all. And okay, good comments by am I seeking the favor of men or of God? Galatians 1:10. All right, Proverbs. Aaron, I'm just going to read I'm going to read the verses, and then quickly we'll run down through them and talk about them. Boast not thyself of tomorrow. This is Proverbs 27, 1-8. Boast not thyself of tomorrow, for thou knowest not what a day may bring forth. Let another man praise thee, and not thine own mouth, a stranger, not thine own lips. A stone is heavy, and the sand is weighty, but a fool's wrath is heavier than them both. Wrath is cruel, anger is outrageous. Who is able to stand before envy? Open rebuke is better than secret love. Faithful are the wounds of a friend, but the kisses of an enemy, they're deceitful. That's flattery, by the way. The full soul loatheth the honeycomb, but to the hungry soul every bitter thing is sweet. As a bird that wandereth from her nest, so is a man that wandereth from his place. Now I have got some notes on each one of these verses. So boast not thyself of tomorrow, for thou knowest not what a day may bring forth. Humility and a recognition of life's uncertainty. Yep. In the context of flattery and love bombing, it reminds us to remain grounded, not swayed by the grand promises or excessive praise about the future, recognizing that only God knows what lies ahead.
Yep.
Can you imagine people coming in? Also love bombing and flattery. There's also something that's called future faking. I actually wrote an article about future faking. I'm very concerned whenever we talk about the brand. I'm very concerned that I come across as if I'm future faking.
Yep.
Because there is a fine line.
Yep.
Between preparing for the future and having a plan versus future faking. Anyway. Proverbs 27:2. Let another man praise thee, and not thine own mouth, a stranger, and not thine own lips. True recognition should come from others based on genuine achievements rather than self-promotion. This principle helps guard against being manipulated by flattery. In other words, you need to be sure enough in yourself. That's why it always made me uncomfortable whenever, I'd train a colt or ride a rank horse and get it to where somebody could ride it. Like, this is just another day at the office for me. Don't make a big deal about this. You think this is amazing, but this is the 20th wild horse that I've rode today.
Yeah.
Yours ain't even particularly bad.
Yeah. That was such a good sermon, Aaron, the way you put it together. You're one of the best speakers I've ever heard. Well, I think I got a lot of work to do because, I know myself and I know what I put into it and what I didn't. And I know I could have done better. I don't know. I know.
You
don't know how many 20 horses I've preached,
Yeah, I know.
I'm thankful though for brethren that I know that are genuine. I'm not talking about that. People that I know on a personal basis. I'm not talking about them, you know.
Well, that's the difficulty of the topic, right?
My brethren that love me and support me at Washington Avenue, you know, and support my family financially and morally, you know. I'm not.
Oh yeah.
I'm not talking about that.
No, you know whether or not you're flattering, and if the object of the person to whom you give praise and affection, they will know soon enough.
Yep.
Whether or not you're flattering or love bombing.
And the point I've tried to make too, I may not have got it very clearly on this episode, is that like education of these things is so important, because I think there's super good people that do this stuff. They flatter and they may even love bomb. They don't really realize it. I don't know that they're terrible people trying to manipulate even. Maybe they are, and I need to be more discerning, but just otherwise they've never caused you a problem. You've never seen any manipulation out of them, but just be healthy in the things you talk. You don't realize the things that you say, how that adversely affects someone. Is, you know.
Yeah, that's all we're saying. As Scott Beck, it gets back to intentions.
Yeah.
We are not qualified to judge intentions. We can only judge outcomes. And once you see the outcome, you can kind of backwards engineer it.
Yeah.
And get a pretty good idea of the intentions. But again, you might be wrong there. We only deal with actions. And it's a fine line. Like we don't want to come across as, well, if I preach the best sermon you've ever heard, I want you to sit there and I want you to keep your mouth shut. I don't ever want you to give me any positive feedback. That's not what we're saying.
Right.
At all. In fact, a good rule of thumb, if you want to give praise, is don't speak in these grandiose terms.
Yes.
Don't ever walk up to a person and say, you preach the best sermon I've ever heard. Go to them and say, listen, that was a really good sermon. It was really well done. Thank you.
It's okay to tell them why it was one of your favorite. What about it was so good? The content, the things that you said or something. You know, I understand 1 Corinthians 2 now, and I had never understood it like this before. Yeah. You know, instead of just this is the best one I've ever heard. And then it turns into saying it's the best because of oratory skills alone. At least that's the way it can come across, you know, in these preaching sessions of famous brethren in these big circuit deals. You know, it's like they can quote 100 verses in a row without messing up. And it becomes about their oratory skills instead of the message.
Yes. Brandon Wild, when I was talking about the horses, sticky butt and sticky hands. I will tell you this. I was probably the world's worst at riding a bucking horse. If I was on a horse and it started bucking, my immediate priority was to make it stop bucking. And if I couldn't make it stop bucking, I would separate from it. I'd part company with it because it's safer to jump off than it is to get thrown off. Yeah. And a rapid dismount does not count as getting throwed.
Hey, the other day we were talking about horses, me and my oldest daughter, Cheyenne, and I mentioned you about, you used to train horses. Tony? Yeah. Horses? You know, because you know how kids are with animals too, and then somebody they know that's their parents' friend, and you know, he did horses? He did what? I hadn't heard about any of this.
Yeah, I got some old videos on YouTube still.
Really?
Yeah, the channel I think I called it something like Tony's Gated Horses. And
I need to find that so I can show her.
Yeah, they're old now, but anyway, so it goes back to intentions. We don't judge intentions.
Yeah.
All right.
Verse 3.
Yes.
Is that where you were?
A stone is heavy, and the sand is weighty. But a fool's wrath is heavier than them both. Wrath is cruel and anger is outrageous, but who is able to stand before envy? So these verses highlight the destructive power of negative emotions. In the context of guarding against flattery and love bombing, they warn of the potential of such tactics to evolve into envy and wrath. when the manipulator's desires are not met, emphasizing the importance of recognizing and avoiding such toxic dynamics. So think about it. A stone is heavy and sand is weighty. A fool's wrath is heavier than them both. You cannot appease, no matter how you try, the wrath of a fool. And no matter how you try, you cannot stand up to the scrutiny of those who are envious.
Yeah.
And the fool and the one who is envious, once they have become angry and wrathful at you, it's because their love bombing tactics failed.
Yeah.
And you have separated yourself from them.
So the Proverbs writer is saying, don't get your approval from them. Can't you kind of summarize the first 8 or 9 verses that way, right?
Well, yes.
He's don't get your approval.
You do not get your approval from, well, you don't get your approval from external sources, all right?
Yeah.
Open rebuke is better than secret love. Faithful are the wounds of a friend, but the kisses of an enemy are deceitful. So honesty and constructive criticism from a true friend are invaluable, even if they may be hard to accept. In contrast, the seemingly sweet gestures of those with hidden agendas, like flatterers and love bombers, are ultimately harmful. These verses underscore the importance of cultivating relationships where honesty prevails over deceitful flattery. So open rebuke is better than secret love. You got a person that flatters you and flatters you and flatters you, it would be better if they rebuked you openly than just flattered you in private.
Yeah.
And then faithful are the wounds of a friend. Aaron tells me something I need to change. It's going to hurt. But it's much more profitable to me than the people in my life that love bomb and flatter, because that's deceitful.
You know,
Tony, go ahead.
Right, connected with this exact verse you're commenting on, my Bible has a little note, like probably a lot of people does. Proverbs 28:23, he who rebukes a man will find more favor afterward than he who flatters with the tongue. So there's the word flatter again, and love, love, open rebuke is better.
That's it. Now, here's the crux of the matter. The full soul loatheth the honeycomb. So what do we know about honey and a honeycomb? Honey and honeycomb is sweet. And in nature, sweet is a very difficult taste to find. Sweet, salt, fat. Those are 3. Fat's not really a taste, but you get it. So that's why you can give your dog kibble, and he'll come off his food, because it just gets so bland after a while. But you throw some bacon grease on it, and it's got that salty, fatty kind of, and it just goes nuts. If you are actualized to the point where you are internally validated and you don't seek the validation of others, then you will be manipulation proof. In other words, it doesn't matter how many people, hello, Facebook user. It doesn't matter how many people come up out of the woodwork to flatter you or love bomb you.
Yeah.
You don't, in fact, it's going to make you sick.
Yeah.
The people that fall prey to flatterers and love bombers are people who have something missing in their life, and they're trying to fill a hole in their life.
Yeah.
But if you have that hole in your life filled, if you are living oriented towards the highest possible good you can conceive, and if you if you have integrity and you have a good sense of self, they're going to try to feed you that honeycomb of flattery and love bombing, and you're just going to say, no, this makes me sick.
Yeah.
But if you're needing, if you're needy, if you're looking for something, if you're not actualized, when the person comes along to love bomb and flatter, then you're going to be like, ooh, give me some more of that.
You're going to eat it up. Yeah.
That's it. And then you're going to be like a little bird that wanders from its nest.
Yeah.
That's so is a man that wandereth from his place. What happens in nature to a little bird that wanders from its nest, Aaron?
Gets devoured.
Yep. It falls out of the nest and hits the ground. And if the fall doesn't kill it,
Yeah.
the animal comes along and eats it.
Yep. It's toe up. Yep.
Flattery and love bombing, folks.
That's what
Guard
it does.
against it.
Yeah. Flattery and love bombing does not kill you spiritually in the downfall, if you will, and take you out of faithful service. Then it will in the long run, like like it'll eventually take you over. It'll eventually come back to like
Yep.
if you like what we said, like people do. Like I think there are people that are discerning enough, they're smart enough, they're intelligent enough to know these people. Like one of the comments that was earlier given, preachers that are catering to certain people in the congregation that make his life better. Like he has bad motives, he's using those people. He's smart enough to know better. But he wants that. He's not wise. He wants that because he's using them. He's pleasing them to keep his job, to do whatever that he wants to do. Get them to believe what he wants them to believe, whatever. But in the end, if he doesn't fall initially from that, in his own life, in the end, it will devour him. That was my point. Like either now when the bird falls out and hits the ground, or eventually get devoured eventually.
That's it. And folks, I'm going to tell you, if you implement Proverbs 27, 1-8 in your life and you learn how to guard against flatterers and love bombers, and if you learn how to actualize and be self-validating, now that doesn't mean that you're pathological. That doesn't mean that you don't care what anybody thinks. I care what people think about me generally. And then there are some people that I care what they think about me specifically. Okay? Like, I'm not going to come on the live stream and snort cocaine because, A, I don't do that. If I'm snorting cocaine, I'm cutting it with bacon grease. Because of the fat. I'm fat. Yeah, I'm fat, in case nobody knows. Anyway, the idea is cokeheads are typically very skinny. It's because they don't eat, but if you're cutting your cocaine with bacon grease, anyway, I'm sorry. It's a bad joke from the 80s. And here I put John in the corner for making bad jokes.
If you're doing it online, that must be the first time.
Exactly. So, but my point is, I'm not gonna come on the live stream drinking a beer, doing cocaine or anything like that. Why? Well, because for one, my Bible says don't do that. But two, I'm gonna lose Aaron.
You care. Generally,
specifically, I care what Aaron Dotson thinks of Tony Brewer.
Yep.
Specifically, generally, I care what my audience, I use the word I got to train myself. I care about our audience.
Yep.
Okay. Now that's not my prime motivator.
No, but it factors in there.
Amen.
Because we influence people as Christians. We're the light of the world. It matters.
Yes. And so if you're one of those people, though, that is secure in themselves, then you're going to make a lot of people mad.
Yep.
Just by being you. But that's okay because you don't need them people anyway. They're toxic to your life.
Yep.
In being loved bomb, I wait to see evidence that it's legit. Sincerity will prove itself in time. My goal is to be approved by God. As the commercial said, for everyone else, there's MasterCard. That's it. and that's, I know that you came in late. We actually talked about that in the beginning. I used the illustration of a person in the that's been watching. He's a preacher out west. If I ever went out west and I went into a random congregation and there he was preaching, I'm excitable. I'm enthusiastic and to the point of effervescence. If I don't watch it, I would come across as flattering and love bombing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't be love bombing.
Yeah.
And I would like to think it wouldn't be flattery. I think I'm hoping I've trained myself enough to where I could, but again, you get excited and things run away with you.
There's just some boundaries. And like we said, one of the main things is using discernment. how would this, we should care generally what people think of us. How would somebody perceive this if I said this? Think before you speak. That matters.
Be swift to hear, slow
Yes.
to speak.
Yeah.
Brandon Wild says that was guy talk about Tony having a sticky butt and sticky hands when it comes to training horses. But he says, I do not like them animals. You know, sometimes I miss training horses. And then I remember what it was like to train horses, and I don't miss it anymore.
Yeah, I bet. Bunch of hard work, probably.
It was just, it was not a good lifestyle.
Yeah.
I was around too many crooks, too many criminals. Anyway, Aaron, I think I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I am too. We've covered, I feel like we've covered it sufficient for now.
Yeah.
It's just such a needed subject to talk about because it just deals with the interchange and human relationships, in and out of the church. And we need to, well, like we suggested in the podcast so far, discernment from God's word, and also fostering health. Those are the two that come to my mind. Fostering healthy relationships with people.
That's it.
Those are two of the keys I think we mentioned. There were three or four, and I can't recall all of them. But
be humble.
Yeah.
And being humble is not the same as being self-deprecating.
Yes, right.
You can be very confident in who you are and what you do, and also be humble.
Absolutely.
I think humility is way less about self-deprecation and way more about knowing where your cog fits in the wheel of the machine that we call the cosmos.
Yep. The Apostle Paul, I mean, he was humble. He knew his place, and he worked hard, and he was thankful. And, Proverbs 27, 1-8 that we ended on. Don't get your validation from others. That's going to help you in your discernment when people say certain things. I can't remember the exact thing that our teachers would say at school, and they tell you don't quote me from my notes, but it seems like one or more of the teachers would tell us that, about how to handle criticism and praise. I don't remember the exact saying, but it was something along the lines of just taking both with a grain of salt.
Well,
I don't remember. Maybe you can remember what.
I remember a little bit, but it caused me to have a thought. Undue praise is probably more damaging than unfair criticism. Yeah. Undue praise is probably more damaging than unfair criticism. Because I can learn something from unfair criticism. The sad thing is every time that I'm criticized, I'm just like, okay, I mean, I know this about me.
Yeah.
I work on it every day.
Yeah.
I am a hard individual.
Mm-hmm.
I am a very stern individual. I get it. I know that I'm excitable to the point of effervescence. I work on it. I'm cognizant of it. So you can use that against me, but I feel like B Rabbit at the end of 8 Mile.
Yeah.
He says, okay, now here's the mic. Tell these people something they don't know about me. I am white. I do live in a trailer park with my mom. I do got a friend that shot himself in the leg. My best friend is an Uncle Tom.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got it. That's all those things. You're right. Now here, tell these people something they don't know about me.
Yeah.
I don't suggest that you go watch the movie 8 Mile. Yeah. It came out in 1998. It's about inner city rappers, and it is not a Christian movie.
Yeah.
But that last scene really stuck with me. It's
what you're pointing to is there something, I don't know the background of the history of this, but know thyself. We need to know, I don't know the history of that, but just that concept. We need to know ourselves. We need to know, our limits and how to protect ourselves and guard ourselves.
It's just knowing who you are.
Knowing who you are. That's right. It's like, I know I can do that. I know I'm good at this. I know I'm weak at that. I know what I can, I think that's all wrapped up in humility, knowing your place. The Bible says here's the two verses that come to my mind. This is it. This is all I got. Romans 12 says that we're not to think of ourselves more highly than we ought. And the second great command is to love your neighbor as yourself. That means you love yourself. All that entails that would please God. Your gratitude for life, your self-preservation, self-protection. Don't think too much, but don't think too little.
Yeah.
Don't be self-deprecating.
So know thyself is a reference back to Immanuel Kant, Kantian Ethics and Morals, Metaphysics of Morals, 1797. Immanuel Kant wrote, know thyself should be understood, or Immanuel Kant wrote, know thyself. Now, the notes says, this should be understood as an ethical commandment to know one's own heart and to understand the motives behind one's actions in order to harmonize one's will with one's duty.
That's good.
Yeah, and that's the thing. If you study the scriptures, you will come to know thyself.
Mm-hmm.
Think about, take heed unto thyself and unto the flock over the which the Holy Ghost hath made you overseers. Take heed unto thyself and unto the doctrine, and continue in them. Take heed unto thyself if thy brother trespass against thee. What's that? Brethren, if any man be overtaken in a fault, ye which are spiritual restore such a one, considering thyself.
Yeah. Lest you also be tempted.
It's if you study the Bible, you'll have the frame of reference to be able to know thyself, and then you will not fall prey to love bombers or flatterers.
That's good. Good way to end right there.
I think it's a good way to end. God bless everybody. Thank you so much. Remember, we didn't put up the caption for the tip jar. We have $100 in the tip jar. That's going to go directly to paying off Aaron's sound equipment. Thank you so much for those of you that have done that.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much for those of you. We've gotten 3 paid subscribers on Substack in the last 2 weeks. I credit that to Aaron's writing of these articles from the book of Romans. Saturday, we plan to drop another one. So thank you for that, Aaron. And not to be flattering or love bombing, but they're good articles.
Yeah, and if you're interested in supporting us, then do the paid subscription on Substack, and you can start checking out those articles that are currently coming out on the Book of Romans. That's
it. And Scott Beck, up to 175 subscribers on YouTube.
Cool.
Listen, if you want to help us out, and you don't have the ability to do it financially, understand how much you're interacting with the material helps us out. If you'll go to YouTube and go to Christianity Now Streams, and on your desktop, just click the playlist that's a podcast and let it play. YouTube's algorithm says, these people, they have content that's evergreen. We're going to show their content to more people now. Aaron, see, we just talked about this, didn't we?
Yesterday, yeah. Aaron, I loved your walk and talk videos. Do you still do those? I haven't since like November or so, December. But just yesterday, I told Tony I'm gonna start back. I'm about to start back. So
he's future faking. Y'all Google that. He's just future faking. It's all part of flattery and love bombing. You can't believe a thing he says. He's just future faking. Don't believe it until you get a video.
Right. Don't believe it till you see it. But yeah, I plan to do that.
And that's a good example of sarcasm and two friends gently or not so gently ribbing on one another.
That's it. And reminding each other, don't future fake either.
That's right. Don't be future faking, boy. Say you want to get the video, get the video.
I'll call you out on live stream if I have to.
I guarantee it. I guarantee. Yeah, awesome. Look forward to them. That's great.
Yeah.
All right, folks. God bless every one of you. You know how to support us. You know how to help us out. Don't forget about Rumble. And look at your show notes, or look at your comment section, and look at those links. God bless every one of you. This has been Tony Burr and Aaron Dotson with Christianity Now, and we'll catch y'all on the flip side.